Hello, Emily here from Homemade Emily Jane, and today I'm very excited to share with you my latest and greatest quilt pattern, the Limelight Quilt Pattern. If you're looking for a modern geometric quilt pattern, then Limelight is definitely a perfect one for you to try out. It's fat quarter friendly and perfect for an advanced beginner quilter. Let me share with you a little bit more about Limelight, what you can expect from the pattern, and some key skills and techniques you will learn or practice while making your Limelight quilt. I'll also share with you a few different versions for inspiration, and I have all this information also over on my website, homemadeemelyjane.to, and I'll put a link to the exact blog post in the description below for you. First off, I'll share the Limelight quilt pattern includes 3 different sizes inside the pattern. There are instructions to make a baby size, a throw size, and a queen bed size Limelight quilt. And of course, you'll notice it is block based. So if you want to make a size maybe bigger or a size in between, if you want to do like a lap size, you are absolutely able to do that by just scaling up or down the number of blocks that you make for your quilt. I mentioned briefly in the beginning that this is a quilt pattern that's perfect for an advanced beginner quilter. And let me share with you a little bit more about what that means. This is a modern quilt pattern, but it does rely on some traditional classic quilt blocks. If you have made a quilt before and you feel confident about using a sewing machine, then I think you're ready to try the Limelight quilt. The Limelight quilt pattern features 2 traditional shapes, the Hourglass quilt block as well as the Flying Geese quilt block. The Limelight pattern uses the 4 at a time Flying Geese method. So if you've never tried that method, it's a really great one. I personally love making my Flying Geese 4 at a time because it saves fabric and it's a lot faster than the more traditional 1 at a time version. If you've never made the Flying Geese or the Scrappy Hourglass, I always recommend testing out the blocks and making a few samples just to get your feet wet with the techniques before actually starting in your Limelight quilt or whatever quilt pattern you're working on. And you're in luck, I do offer free tutorials so you can learn these popular quilt blocks, test them out, and then see if you are ready to take on the Limelight quilt. So first off, the 4 at a time Flying Geese tutorial. This one is amazing. You're gonna love it. Within the tutorial, I share with you how to make different sizes, so you can make any size Flying Geese that you want, and there's a video included as well. So make sure you check out that full tutorial for all of the instructions and measurements you'll need just to try out making your own Flying Geese. And then also I do have a tutorial video and blog post article up for how to make Scrappy Hourglass units for your quilt blocks. So if you have never tried this, it's another really great technique to learn whether or not you choose to make the Limelight pattern or not. And as I mentioned, it's a free tutorial, so go check it out. Next, I'll share with you the fabric requirements for making your Limelight quilt. The Limelight quilt pattern includes 3 sizes, and I'll put the fabric requirements up on the screen for you right now. As you can see, it's fat quarter friendly. I personally love using fat quarters in my quilts because it adds some variety and fun, and it's super easy to purchase fabrics as a fat quarter bundle, or even if you're in a quilt shop and you just look for all those beautiful fat quarters. If you're new to quilting, you might not know what a fat quarter even is. It's a piece of fabric that is traditionally roughly around 18 inches by 21 inches. So it's a pretty decent sized rectangle, and you can cut that up and use it for many different quilts. Quite a few of my own patterns are fat quarter friendly as well. So if you want to check out all my fat quarter friendly patterns, they're all over on my website. I will also note the baby size of Limelight. You could scale back. You don't need a full fat quarter. I didn't include fat eighths as the official requirement because it'd be cutting it very close using the fat eighth. So just keep that in mind. If you have generous fat eighths, you could probably use fat eighths instead of fat quarters for the baby size only. One of my favorite things to do as I design and write modern quilt patterns is to include AccuQuilt instructions within the pattern. And I know this might not apply to all of you, but those of you that use AccuQuilt or maybe want to learn a little bit more, AccuQuilt is a die cutting machine that you can use to cut out fabric. It cuts, the one I have, the AccuQuilt Go, cuts up to 6 layers of fabric at a time, so it saves a ton of time, and the pieces that it cuts out are incredibly precise and accurate, hence the name AccuQuilt. So if you like using AccuQuilt, or maybe you want to try out using AccuQuilt, the Limelight Quilt pattern does include AccuQuilt-specific instructions. So you'll make your blocks using slightly different techniques, the cutting will be slightly different, and the fabric requirements will also be a little bit different as well. The main difference is that the background fabric, you'll just need a little bit extra for wiggle room if you choose to cut out all your background pieces using AccuQuilt, but the fat quarter requirements remain the same. So just keep that in mind if you choose AccuQuilt as your means of cutting out your Limelight quilts. And also I'll share, the Limelight quilt actually uses one of my all-time favorite die sets from AccuQuilt. It features a few of the dies from the 8-inch mix and match cube, which if you have an AccuQuilt Go machine and don't yet have the 8-inch mix and match cube, it's time to get it. It's one of my favorites. Quite a few of my quilt patterns that are AccuQuilt friendly actually use this specific die set, which I'll link for you below. And also, if you're curious what other dies I recommend, check out this video right here, all of my favorite AccuQuilt dies you can check out. So let's say you're not using AccuQuilt, let's dive into some other quilting supplies that I might recommend for making your Limelight quilt. First off, all the essential quilting tools. If you're not sure what those are yet, here's a little video. These are the essentials that you'll need to make any quilt. It's a great place to start if you're new to quilting too. Other than that, I always recommend prepping your fabrics with Best Press or your favorite starch alternative prior to cutting. Make sure that your fabric is prepped and dry before you start cutting. It's wrinkle free and crisp. I personally use Best Press, but you can use whatever product you personally enjoy as well. I also recommend some square rulers, a nice long ruler. All of those essentials are super helpful for making the Limelight quilt. Maybe a 6.5-inch square ruler I found useful. So if you don't already have one, that's a great one. But if you've been quilting for any amount of time, you likely do have rulers that will work for this pattern. If you don't have the Stripology ruler and you're not using AccuQuilt, then I would highly recommend the Stripology. I used it for making my Limelight quilt. And you can learn more about Stripology right here in this video. You'll learn how to use it and why I love mine so much. Next, I'd love to share with you about the quilt kits available for making this beautiful Limelight quilt right behind me. I have these fabrics available in my shop. You'll see here they are vibrant, they are fun, they are bright, and they are perfect for summer. So make sure you grab your Limelight quilt kit today. I'll put a link in the description below for you. The Limelight quilt kit includes the background fabric, fabric for binding your quilt, and then all of your fat quarters for the throw size quilt. And it also includes a paper version of the Limelight quilt pattern. Maybe these colors aren't quite perfect for you, but you want to make your own using fabrics from your stash or another quilt shop. That's wonderful too. I'd love to share with you some inspiration for getting ready to make your own Limelight quilt. I personally made a few different versions. I'll share them with you now. First off, I made this super fun one using fabrics from the Backyard Fabric Collection by Sarah Watts for Ruby Star Society. This fabric collection is not yet in stores, but will be soon. And I'll put a link in the description and over on my website if you want to check out the collection. Again, that's Backyard, and it has all of these really cute little animals, bunnies, chickens, and butterflies. So it's a really fun collection in these really vibrant colors. I backed this quilt with Ruby Star Society speckled and wide back. Of course, those are some of my favorite backings for quilts. And of course, I had to make a baby size. I made this aqua and white baby size Limelight quilt using just fabrics from my stash. I actually used scraps for this one, so I did not use that 4 at a time flying geese method because most of these fabrics I didn't actually use for flying geese, from them for the quilt. But if you want some more tips and tricks for making your scrappy version of Limelight, you just have a little bit more extra excess fabric that gets wasted. I cut it out using AccuQuilt, so I cut out the exact triangles that are needed for those flying geese. Anyway, you can find all my tips over in the blog post that I wrote about this baby size Limelight. If you want to make your own Limelight quilt but you like to color in your quilts before you get started to help audition some of the fabrics or color choices, I do have a free coloring sheet available. You can find that also over on my website. There's a page called amzn.to/coloring-pages. Again, I'll put the link for you down below, and you can download free coloring pages for all of my quilt patterns, including this beautiful new one. You can print them out, use crayons or colored pencils to color it in, or even keep it digital and use your favorite digital coloring software options as well. I've been using an app on my phone that's free. It's called the Recolor app, and you just kind of tap in which colors you want and it fills it in for you and gives you a good idea of what that quilt could look like. And finally, I'll wrap up this video by sharing with you a few more versions of the Limelight quilt. These ones were made by some pattern testers to help inspire you for your version of your Limelight quilt and give you a few ideas. So this first version is a baby size made by Sarah. Sarah's on Instagram at The Quilty Wife, and she made this gorgeous floral baby size Limelight quilt. And my friend Laura from @Sharing Seams on Instagram made this really pretty bright white and blue baby size Limelight quilt as well. I hope you love all of these different versions of the Limelight pattern. If you have any questions about the pattern, make sure you reach out and drop a comment below to let me know what you think. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel for tons of quilting inspiration, free tutorials, and as always, all my quilting tips and tricks. Happy sewing!